Have you thought about how absolutely spoiled we were in 2023 as gamers? 2024 has been okay so far, and it's not to any fault of any of the games that have released this year. It's just that 2023 was so stacked month after month that it's pretty much unfair to have expected that to continue into 2024. However, the fact of the matter remains that expectations were high, and coming off of 2023, there has been a little bit of a lull.
Where are the games?
No, I'm not weird, and I don't mean it like that. 2023 ruined video games in the sense that the expectations, for me at least, were too high going into 2024. Yeah, Palworld was chill for the month that it was relevant. Helldivers 2 is a legitimate contender for Game of the Year as a multiplayer game, but you're gonna tell me that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Dragon's Dogma 2 even hold a candle to Tears of the Kingdom that barely won any awards last year? Don't even bring Baldur's Gate 3 into the conversation because it wouldn't be fair. It blows everything out of the water. The best thing I've played this year is DLC for a 2-year-old game. To be clear, Shadow of the Erdtree absolutely wipes the floor this year, but even that isn't hitting quite as hard as Elden Ring did on launch. Now, I can feel most of you starting to click away, and I promise this isn't a ranty video about the state of AAA games and there are no good games. There are good games in 2024. This is more of a check-in with gaming in 2024, why I think it's important to have these years that sort of bridge the gap between the all-time greats. Yeah, 2023 ruined video gaming for me, but I think it's a good thing. Hey, Danny with the DMGT here, your new favorite place for all things music, gaming, and tech. Headed into 2024, I was coming off of a pretty personal high. We had just booked our tickets to CES, we attended CES, and it was awesome seeing all the new technology, and I was really primed or hoping for a really strong year on the content creation side. Unfortunately, things have not exactly panned out the way that I was hoping them to, mostly due to personal mental health reasons and finding the right motivation to continue doing this. But where that context is relevant to the point of this video is something that I've tried to keep front of mind. Am I still going to find enjoyment out of video games, out of music, out of technology if I'm creating content for it and sort of try to make it my job? The answer is kind of. I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I have made a few dollars off this content video creation thing. Not a ton, but enough to pay for a couple of games this year at least. And while the output of content hasn't exactly been consistent, I have still played quite a few games this year so far. And it's a little bit of a combination of the games not quite hitting as hard and my motivation levels needing to find some good balance. But the more I've sat on this video and the more I've thought about it, I haven't even completed my backlog from all the games that released in 2023. It just felt like there was no break in between to really absorb and dig into why I enjoyed certain games last year, like a Baldur's Gate 3, Tears of the Kingdom, made my think pieces on those. But why did I enjoy Alan Wake 2 so much? What did indie games like Cocoon or Sea of Stars do so differently that really had me looking forward to the next game? A lot of games take risks. A lot of games try a novel idea to incorporate into their game year after year. Sure, the older we get and the more games we have under our belt, the less likely it is that we'll run into a mechanic that feels so refreshing that it reinvigorates your love of video gaming. But with all that said, there's a sentiment online that has always bothered me, and it's the idea that you will quote-unquote grow out of video games or mature out of video games. It's an insane thought to me because no one really says that about people who enjoy movies or people who really love music and new music or people that enjoy sports, TV, books, whatever the case is. And through that introspection, I've really finally truly internalized the idea that not every game needs to be the best thing I've ever played. That's an insane approach to going to the movies. You never really go to the movies thinking this better be the best movie of all time or I'm never gonna go to another movie again. In that sense, 2024 has provided the breathing room, sort of a reset to help me really understand why I love video games and still get fulfillment out of it, where I am getting those highs, those serotonin highs of like, this is maybe some of the best stuff I've seen or listened to on the music and movie side. As someone who enjoys the arts and also enjoys thinking critically about why people enjoy the arts, it means that sometimes you have to take a step back and just accept things for what they are and what they are trying to be, not what you want them to be, if that makes sense. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's no space for critical feedback or that I have no criticism for anything ever. I think that also becomes boring and tedious. In the case of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, for example, because I've really struggled with that one even though a lot of people love it this year, it's not trying to be anything groundbreaking. It's just trying to be the best JRPG that it can be, being an homage to the JRPGs of old, and I think that's okay. I still think it's a little bloated and a little saturated with repetitive content, but it's still accomplishing what it set out to do. It didn't try to sell me on a different narrative that I imposed on that game. It's not the game's fault that it's a 4 out of 5 and not a 5 out of 5 like I wanted it to be. Hell, I look back at the video that I made last year on this channel talking about how we're using rating scores incorrectly. One of my biggest points there was that not every year is going to have a 5 out of 5 game, and it was my mistake, especially coming off of a 2023, that you could expect that every couple of months, especially with the major releases. Let's not forget the real world stuff, the layoffs that have continued in the gaming industry into 2024. It's still fulfilling its role as sort of a bridge year to really help you complete that backlog and sort of reset and get ready for the next wave of really big releases, whatever they may be. That has helped me really get some real enjoyment out of a game like Balatro that released this year, a roguelike with poker, two concepts that I'm already very familiar with, and it just works. I'm getting real enjoyment out of it. I've put in like 60 hours into that game over the last 2 months. Animal Well is another great example where you're taking concepts that we're familiar with in the gaming space, a Metroidvania platformer with some puzzle mechanics. However, the challenge becomes the puzzle solving itself. That becomes so satisfying to figure out a puzzle rather than figuring out a tough boss with combat. Everything's not rainbows and butterflies. There have absolutely been some duds this year. Skull and Bones, Suicide Squad, Rise of the Ronin was okay. I don't think it's terrible like some people said it was. And while the microtransaction debacle around Dragon's Dogma 2 was blown way out of proportion, it still didn't really live up to the hype that some of the early previews were stating. But on that same token, I'm glad that a game like Another Crab's Treasure is trying their hand at the FromSoft formula, because it's switching up the feel, the look. Not all Souls-like or Soulsborne games should be dark and dreary, Lovecraftian nightmares. I think there's room to add some color and really take your imagination elsewhere while incorporating similar mechanics. And you know what? If you like the Ubisoft formula and you like playing all the new Assassin's Creeds year over year, who am I to judge you? Because I get MLB The Show every year and I put in 100 hours every year into those games. Although I'm not over here pretending that it's more than what it is. I know I'm getting fleeced every year and the mechanics haven't really improved all that much, but I'm not going to get into an MLB The Show rant because I will lose my mind. So yeah, 2023 ruined me and ruined video games, but I think for the better. I feel like I've been reborn, and now I'm ready for whatever new wave of really major good titles are. Shadow of the Erdtree, phenomenal. If that wasn't a DLC, I'd say it's Game of the Year. Hell, I'm inclined to say that it's still Game of the Year, even as a DLC. Okay, thanks for watching the video. Let me know in the comments what you do to keep your love of gaming going. Do you take like breaks from video games for a while? Do you go back to a comfort game like I do with sports games? I don't know, you tell me. Okay, bye.